Good evening, friends, and welcome to my channel. Tonight, I will share with you a story about masks and tradition. In a remote village, where the wind whispers ancient secrets through the treetops, the villagers follow a long-standing custom. The people here believe that when someone dies, the family must place a special mask over the deceased's face during the funeral. This mask is not merely part of the ritual, it is considered crucial to ensuring the dead may rest in peace. If the deceased's face is left uncovered, their ghost will grow restless, and a curse will befall the living. Wei, a young man, lived in this village. His mother had left home when he was a child, and his father, a hunter, ventured deep into the mountains year after year, risking his life to provide for the family. One day, however, his father went into the woods and never returned. When the villagers finally found him, he was already a corpse, his face twisted in agony, clearly the victim of a tragic accident. He had died alone and helpless, his life taken by the mountain winds. The villagers told Wei, "You must place a mask over your father's face before he is buried. It is the rule passed down by our ancestors." The mask was carved by an elderly woman in the village, a centenarian who crafted one for every funeral. The villagers believed that only by wearing this mask would the mountain accept the dead, allowing their spirit to rest. Wei did not believe in such superstitions. To him, this was simply his father's funeral, and he only wanted to send him off with dignity. He saw no mystical power in the mask. But the villagers insisted. If the custom was ignored, the elders would be furious. Lost in grief, Wei agreed absent-mindedly, paying little attention to their warnings. That night, Wei returned home and placed the mask on the table before grabbing a bottle of wine to drown his sorrows. By midnight, drunk and unsteady, he stumbled upstairs to his room. As the wind howled through the cracks in the window, he fell into a heavy, grief-stricken sleep. But when he woke the next morning, the mask that should have been on the table was gone. At first, Wei thought nothing of it, assuming he had misplaced it in his drunken state. Yet no matter how thoroughly he searched the house, turning over every corner, the mask remained missing. A strange unease crept into his heart, confusion mixed with an inexplicable dread. Maybe I left it somewhere else, he thought. But no matter where he looked, the mask was nowhere to be found. On the day of the burial, Wei stood before his father's grave. The funeral proceeded in solemn silence, broken only by the rustling of leaves in the wind. But Wei still had not found the missing mask. Nervous yet determined to keep up appearances, he played his part, pretending everything was as it should be. He reassured himself, "It doesn't matter if it's gone. No one will notice. The funeral can still go on." So he told the villagers, "The mask has been placed. Everything is done according to tradition." Yet in the days that followed, Wei began to feel an inexplicable dread. Late one night, as silence enveloped the village, he heard strange noises outside. At first, he dismissed them as an animal passing by. But the sounds grew closer, clearer, until they stopped right outside his window, accompanied by the unsettling sensation of being watched. Wei suddenly realized with a jolt that his room was on the second floor. His heart pounded as he leapt out of bed, flipped on the light, and rushed to the window, only to find nothing there. Convinced exhaustion was playing tricks on him, he closed the curtains and went back to sleep. But the eerie occurrences did not stop. Soon, Wei began hearing whispers as if someone were murmuring in his ear. Even during the day, he sometimes caught the sound of heavy breathing behind him. The air around him grew thick, oppressive, as though unseen eyes were fixed upon him. One night, he woke from a nightmare. His father stood before him in the dream, his mouth moving as if shouting accusations, though Wei could not make out the words. His father's face was twisted in the same horrific expression as his corpse. Before Wei could shake off the nightmare's terror, heavy footsteps suddenly echoed outside his room, as though someone were climbing the stairs. This time, he knew it was no illusion. His heart hammered wildly, primal fear surging through him. The footsteps stopped right outside his door. Then, a shadow flickered past the window. Wei whipped his head around, moonlight spilled into the corner of the room, and in the mirror stood the reflection of a pale, ghastly face. It was his dead father. Wei's breath turned ragged. He could no longer deny the presence of his father's ghost. His father had died in the wilderness, but without the mask, his spirit could not rest. The resentment of the dead now clung to Wei. In that moment, Wei finally understood, the tradition he had dismissed was not mere superstition. The lost mask had been the bridge between the living and the dead. And now, his father's vengeful ghost was closing in on him. Finally, daylight arrived, yet Wei's mental state was extremely fragile. He constantly felt as if a pair of unseen eyes were watching him. To prevent his father's face from reappearing in the mirror, he flipped the mirror over, facing the reflective surface towards the wall. Wei began suffering from insomnia. Even when he managed to fall asleep, he would frequently jolt awake, his father's face repeatedly surfacing in his nightmares. Where did that mask go? Wei asked himself over and over. He couldn't comprehend how such a seemingly simple object could cause such terrifying phenomena to occur one after another. Each time he dreamed of his father, the face grew increasingly blurred and distorted, as if conveying some unresolved fury. In the following days, Wei's unease intensified. He began slipping into a strange psychological state, dreams and reality intertwined, and he could no longer distinguish whether what he experienced was a nightmare or an inescapable curse. Whenever night descends, he instinctively begins to dread the reappearance of his father's ghost. Because of the village's peculiarities, he is unable to seek assistance from the outside world. The villagers, as if having discovered something, all shun him, treating him like a stranger, none daring to approach him. Wei also sought out the old lady, confessing to her the mistake he had made at the funeral and pleading with her to craft another mask for him. Yet, the old lady merely gazed at Wei's face silently with her clouded eyes, saying nothing at all. One night, Wei dreamed of his dead father again. The face was now rotted, two lifeless white eyes fixed on him, devoid of sorrow but filled with deep resentment. His father opened his mouth, black blood oozing out, stepping closer, one heavy step after another. Wei, terrified, stumbled backward until he lost his balance and fell, then jolted awake, hearing his father's furious roar echo in his ears just before consciousness returned. In that instant, Wei sat bolt upright in bed, his forehead drenched in cold sweat. His breathing came in ragged gasps, as if an invisible force pressed down on his chest. He tossed and turned, unable to sleep. As the wind outside the window grew increasingly mournful, he approached the window and drew the curtains aside. Outside, it was pitch black, devoid of any human presence. Suddenly, however, Wei's gaze froze. He caught a blurred reflection of his father standing beside him in the glass. His father's face was contorted and pale, as though he had emerged from the depths of the underworld, staring at him intently.
Wei.
The low, resonant voice echoed through the air, transcending the boundaries of time and piercing straight into his heart. Wei's heart pounded fiercely, and he abruptly turned around, yet found nothing. His trembling hand reached for the necklace dangling from his neck, the sole keepsake bestowed upon him by his late father. Closing his eyes, he longed to escape, to make it all vanish, but deep down, he knew there was no turning back. In the days that followed, Wei's mental state bordered on collapse. He stopped going out altogether, began sealing all the windows, and even shrunk from looking in the mirror. Every time he caught sight of his reflection, it seemed as though he saw his father's face staring back at him. He attempted numerous ways to seek relief and escape from it all, yet to no avail. In the end, Wei made the decision to visit the graveyard. It was his final choice. He wanted to do something for his father, even if it was only to ease his own guilt. Alone, he climbed the mountain to his father's grave. Clutching his father's tombstone, he collapsed in tears, apologizing through sobs. Suddenly, he heard a heavy thud of footsteps behind him. He spun around, but there was nothing. The wind swept through the graveyard, rustling the leaves of nearby trees. Empty. Only an eerie silence lingered. Suddenly, the familiar voice of his father came from behind, shouting his name with deep anger and injustice. Wei turned around, and the darkness in front of him seemed even more oppressive. His deceased father had already appeared in front of him, no mask, no peace, only a highly decayed and twisted face.
You finally brought me my mask.
The hoarse voice, like a demon crawling out of hell, were the last words Wei heard before a mud-covered hand pressed against his face. Then he lost consciousness. Wei never returned from the graveyard. Days later, villagers found his corpse. He lay still before his father's grave, his body already decaying yet strangely intact, no scavenger's marks, no violent wounds. But his face, gone. Not disfigured. Not rotted. Erased, as though it had never existed, all his features were erased, leaving only a blank sheet of human skin, like a canvas meticulously peeled away. The villagers believed this was the consequence of Wei defying tradition, a punishment he had brought upon himself. When the wind rustles through the treetops, a whisper drifts through the air.
Have you seen my face?